Good morning, Norm.
Good
How are you?
morning, Joe. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
For the people at home, we're sitting here at the Pepper Mill in the Oceano restaurant, and I'm talking with Joe Ness, who is the executive director of Entertainment, Electronics, and Media.
That's
EEM
correct.
for short.
That's right. Yeah. I've always been a happy guy, but in the past few years, I found true happiness in my art, which is photography. And when I'm traipsing through these hills and I'm chasing the sun to try to find these perfect pictures, is when my true happiness comes out. That particular day, it was a beautiful morning. We got up at the crack of dawn. We had done some other shots earlier, and just as the sun was hitting the side of Mount Whitney, and the Mount Whitney portal is right there. As a matter of fact, that's what Mobius Arch frames in the particular shot that I was chasing that morning. But you know, when I get my camera and I'm running to chasing this light, you know, there's a certain amount of exercise as part of it. My blood gets going, the endorphins start coming in, you know, the runner's high kind of hits me. Mm-hmm. And then when you find that shot, and you don't always find it, but when that shot sort of comes together and you're seeing it, bliss, you know, ensues. And
you're introducing a new dimension, bliss.
Yeah, right.
I plan to talk about joy. Maybe we can talk about bliss too.
No, but you know what? And I'm grateful, and I've been blessed to have these moments of true happiness throughout the world. You know, whether it's discovering a emperor penguin, you know, emerging from the water in Antarctica. As he walks toward me, there happened to have been a whale carcass or a whale skeleton with icy fields in the back, and here comes this emperor penguin waddling, dripping wet towards my camera. To the beautiful fjords of Norway, to the unbelievable experience I've had around the world shooting underwater. When that shot comes, I certainly am happy.
Good. The title of our piece that we'll be publishing pretty soon is The Unerring Eye. That's you. I've done some snap shooting. I'm no good at it. I've seen amateurs who do amateur work. Your eye is unerring. It never misses the mark. You know when to shoot. It's interesting. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But when you did the Bonneville Salt Flats, which we'll get to in a minute, you talked about how the sun will be setting in a few minutes and the clouds are lined up. So you should be getting this color and that color. That's the unerring eye. You can see it coming and be there, and with some very heavy and sophisticated equipment set up to capture that. That's amazing.
Well, that's true, and if I may embellish on that thought just a bit, part of my success, I've always said that anyone can get lucky and get a good picture if their camera was in the right place at the right time. And of course, all of us nowadays, and in fact, the new generation will have almost a professional, and not almost, a professional camera at their hip their entire lives. And anyone can get a good, great picture, but can you get it consistently? That's where the eye comes in, that's where the experience comes in. I'm constantly searching the horizon, looking at weather, looking at what the sun's gonna do, what are the clouds doing, and how do you frame that light with a subject and a composition that can move people? And if I'm moved myself, I will move people with my photography.
That's true. You talk in this video, you talk about how much joy you get posting that up on the walls all over the Pepper Mill. So wherever you go, you're surrounded with your photography. And I have one more poem to inflict on you. And this is Rabindranath
Hit me.
Tagore, I shall. Interesting. Tagore was a Bengali from Calcutta, got the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, and he talks about joy. He says in his very short poem, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. He found that. You found joy in an older couple looking at your photography, in the people you work with, the young lady who's a clerk at the front desk, your editors. They love your work and you take joy in that. Talk to that if you would.
Well, that's a moving poem. I do take joy in watching people stop and look at these pictures that I've created. Almost every day I'll walk through the property here and I'll see a couple or a family and they're taking pictures of the screens and they're pointing at each other. Look, remember being there? Or I remember our daughter said they went there.
Yeah.
And it brings memories and it brings joy to other people. And that to me gives me the most joy. It, being able to create these images and have people enjoy them on a daily basis. I have the best job in the world and perhaps the biggest gallery in the world.
Yes, you do. And short of the Sistine Chapel and Picasso's Guernica, you've got the biggest, canvases on which to...
And many of them.
And many of them. Let's talk about, later on in this film clip, you go trooping out along the Bonneville Salt Flats. And the shots leading up to your setting up to take the pictures were beautiful. It was a desolate land, and I could see the footprints from you and Ron trailing along and then turning into a circle, and then you stop and you discuss what the sun is going to look like when it's up, what the clouds will look like when they're up. And I thought, this man's a genius. And I thought he should have done a still photograph, just that. The desolate wilderness, the tracks leading up, going straight and then curving, and then two men with their backs to the camera. And the viewer has to wonder, who are these guys? What are they doing? Why do these tracks circle to the right? It was spectacular. And there was also 1 to 2 inches of water. And that was interesting. It was interesting because ordinary mortals like me would say, this salt water is going to ruin my shoes. I hear they're filling up the ice trays in the back.
Yeah. You're stocking a bar right now.
Yeah. The help in an interview. Fill up some ice trays.
Yeah, right.
So, but ordinary mortals like me would think, when I get back to Reno, I'm going to have to go shopping for some new shoes. You don't think in those terms. They've never occurred to you. You're so focused on the shot and what's going to happen, and will it happen as I predict it happens, and will I be set up for that? Talk to that if you would.
Well, you're right. I mean, when I'm in the mode, shooting mode, all else sort of disappears. I mean, literally, I could have been in 2 feet of water in that particular instance, and I probably wouldn't have noticed my shoes getting wet. You are extremely focused. Some people refer to me when I'm shooting as Bill Belichick. I'm sort of this focused, sort of kind of ornery guy that nothing else matters but the task at hand. And it's and people that have worked with me, are always amazed. I remember a particular instance. We were shooting a moonrise, and it was in Paris, and it was for some reason we were near the Seine, and the mosquitoes were unbelievable. For some reason, I'm not sure, there was a bunch of trees and everything, and they were all over me, and everyone was covering themselves, and all the grips and everything were trying to escape it, and I was just out there just loving it, forgetting that I was getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Now, the next morning, I realized I should have taken that into more consideration. But no, I get into a zone. I'm entirely focused. To me, if there's a moment of light that's rare, that I can capture, to me, the little bit of discomfort is not important. It's getting that shot. And of course, we get ourselves into some pretty, I wouldn't say dangerous places, but we do take risks, but they're all calculated. If you don't take risks, you wouldn't get anything.
You mean like standing in front of a lion?
Standing in front of a lion, or a mountain gorilla in Rwanda, where the babies can crush a walnut with their 2 fingers. But this wasn't the baby I was filming. It was the a patriarch of the family, and but those moments and those risks that you take that are calculated yield incredible photography and incredible emotion. I've said this before, if I feel emotion while I'm shooting, the viewer of my photography will feel some of that same emotion. And it's perpetual. It goes on forever. These pictures will have a 20 to 30 year lifespan, maybe more. Although there'll be some technology that'll probably come out, in the next few years that'll make this unbelievable high-res photography that I'm doing a bit boring. But right now, we're at the top of the heap.
Yes. Let's take a digression, since I have your attention. As you know, last night there was a fire at Notre Dame Cathedral.
Heartbreaking.
Paris. And the spire, the fire was in the spire. The spire came crashing down through the roof and into the nave. We still don't know the extent of it. I know the French were heartbroken because last night I watched France 24 news from Paris in English on my Roku stick, and the people in Paris were just heartbroken. So that's your opinion as an artist.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I shot Notre Dame. This was, probably about 10, 15 years ago. And it was beautiful. The light was wonderful. I do remember at that particular point, I didn't have the proper permits to shoot Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
And
that's a whole other set of stories.
Right. This officer walked up, and trying to be as polite as a local French officer could, he could tell that I was English, American, so he tried to speak in English, and he said, no, that tripod, it's forbidden. And so I reached over and hit record, and I said, excuse me, sir? The tripod is forbidden. The tripod is forbidden. I said, what? I don't understand. I was able to stall him 20 seconds to get my shot. Then I politely said, oh, I understand. I shall move now. I put my tripod away and walked across the bridge on the Seine, and I moved on my merry way. But anyway, it was certainly heartbreaking to see the fire, and these relics aren't forever, but Notre Dame was one place that you felt could last forever.
You know, Joe, I've never told you my exposition on the different legal systems in Europe.
Right.
But I think I should tell you now that we brought it up. In England, everything is allowed except what is forbidden. In Germany, everything is forbidden except what is allowed. In Russia, everything is forbidden, including what is allowed. And in France, everything is allowed, including what is forbidden. So now you know.
So maybe I could have just kept shooting, and I would have been fine.
Everything is allowed, including what is forbidden. It's the French way.
Right.
let's get back to your shots. You did the Keys. You did a sailing ship, a 3-master, and the way you did the sunset. I think the sun was a little bit higher in the sky, so it wasn't a red; it was a white hot, with the surrounding atmosphere yellows and oranges. And you shot through the masts. The ship was either sitting at anchor or anchored to one of the 2 buoys there, and the sails were furled, and it was just a beautiful shot. Did you know that you would get those colors out of the sun when you shot that?
Well, I had probably a 50 to 70%. I always, kind of equate things by percentage, but a 50 to 70% chance that I would get that. That shot was taken shooting west at Key West, and it was a beautiful sunset. It's the classic sunset. I had been there before. I was with my son, and we were hoping to try to get that shot. We were shooting on Marathon Key a little earlier that afternoon, and we were trying to position ourselves for that sunset. So we started heading there, and this was a Saturday night.
Okay.
And there's a little park, I forget the name of it, MacArthur Park or something right there, and it becomes a big event, the sunsets there. And first of all, we didn't realize how hard parking would be, and how many people would be there, and how many amateur photographers were trying to get that shot.
What time of the year was that?
That would have been probably April.
Okay.
And so we got there. We couldn't find parking anywhere. So we parked illegally. The sun was going down. I knew I had about 10 minutes to get this shot. And here the sailing ship was going through, which is the quintessential Key West shot.
So it wasn't the anchor.
No, it was slowly going across. They do these sunset cruises, and there was a couple other ones, but this was the big 3-mast one, the one you want to get. And it was way out there. It was like a little speck here, but I wanted to get that compressed view of the sun, which means I had to put a really long lens on, and you have to kind of luck out because it could be so long that you can't even tell it's a 3-master. But I was able to put this, big long, I think it was a 600 millimeter lens, and it was about the right size. And then, but there was people everywhere. I had to kind of push in, and then I got it, and it was amazing. I got that 30 seconds of magic, and then right after that, a couple of guys that might have had one too many kind of bumped into the camera and which would have ruined the shot, but I got it. So that one was a bit luck, but it was also determination. That one, let me tell you, that shot there was less about luck and more about experience and knowing what I wanted and going for it and finding it. And then when it did happen, to take advantage of the light and everything else. The colors, the thing about colors, the sunset will be different every night. And of course, the higher it is, the more hot it is and the more white it is. But it can be covered up with clouds and not be white hot when it's high. But obviously, the lower it gets down on the horizon, the more atmosphere it has to go through and the more filtered it is. And typically, the more dramatic it could be. But not always. A lot of times, I've had sunsets where it just disappears and it goes away and the magic wasn't there. So you just have to be there at the right time and then hope for the luck to happen.
Before I let you get away with that luck, there's an old saying in business I like. I'm very lucky. And the harder I work, the luckier I get.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've done some cityscapes.
Yeah.
But they've sort of been few and far between. In this film we're talking about, you did Hong Kong.
Yeah.
You did Chasing the Clouds in New York.
Right.
In other videos, You did the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Marshall Yard in Chicago.
Right.
A beautiful, beautiful photograph of something where I never thought there was beauty. And you caught the light bouncing off the tendrils of the rails.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
You did a shot in New York of an elevated train coming at you.
That's right.
I'm sure in one of the boroughs. And it was shot with a long, long telephoto because you knew the train was coming at you, but it didn't seem to be getting any closer. Okay, which defies logic, which is part of your art. But I looked at that and I thought, oh, and you shot it through all different kinds of refracting atmosphere. So it had a shimmering, wavering, trembling quality to it. And I thought, this guy, Ness, has created a ballet on the New York City elevated train. How did he do that? How did you do that?
Well, first of all, we do nature. I love nature more than city, but I find city, there's just as much drama if you look for it in city scenes. You just have to find it. And what I try to do is I try to shoot things in such a way that they become timeless. And it isn't just a bunch of tourists walking around a street. They have to have some kind of timeless quality. And I'm going to first talk to quickly about the Chicago, the rail yard. That particular shot was more about composition. I was in Chicago, and I actually had rented one of these little blue bikes, and I had put my camera in the basket, and I was riding all around town. But then I came up over the bridge, and I was looking for that shot. I wanted to get a shot where the skyline would open up. And when you're shooting skylines, the most difficult part is if you're in the middle of a city, you got buildings covering blocking your composition. So I got on this bridge, and the rail yard was right before me. And the beautiful, which I feel, the skyline of Chicago, which I feel is one of the most beautiful skylines in the world, had the Sears Tower and everything. It accentuated the height of the buildings because you could almost see the Sears Tower all the way down to the rail yard, and then all these sort of vertical tracks going, and the sun kind of shimmering on the edge of the tracks made a composition that was wonderful, and thank you for noting that. Now, in the case,
I couldn't miss it.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you again.
Yeah.
You remind me of Beethoven.
Oh, so,
Beethoven was going deaf, if not deaf, by his third symphony. And his music got louder and louder and more imposing on you. And Beethoven said to somebody, I can make you listen to my music. You are the unerring eye of Beethoven. You can make me look at your photographs.
well, I guess that is a side intent, I guess, but no, yeah, no, and there's always something that you look for that will give you that magic. In the case of the elevated train in New York City, that was actually taken of the 7 train coming up out of the tunnel. It was probably a couple miles out of the tunnel coming through the East River. It came through. It was in Queens, and as it elevates, it comes around and it kind of turns around. And I shot that with a long lens. So as it came around, it's coming right at you. And of course, the city skyline of Manhattan. And this was after sunset, so that light is low. The lights of the city are just starting to come on, and it's that magical where you still have detail, but yet the lights are kind of coming on, and that gives you that great shimmering effect with all this light, and that sort of compressed, forced perspective view. You have this train kind of bouncing around like this, and you know it's moving, but it takes forever to get close to you.
Yeah.
And that was inspired, by the way, by a great old movie with Charles Bronson called Death Wish, and I don't know who the director was, but he captured the grittiness of the city in the 70s. And I was a farm boy back then when I watched it, and I had never been to a big city, and I always thought how gritty that was, and that thought came into my mind. So that little thought of the past from that movie inspired this shot, literally 40 years later.
I urge you, when we finish this interview, to rush to your computer and get Carl Sandburg's Chicago poem.
Okay, I will. It sounds like I have some homework.
But it's not a requirement for our next interview.
Okay, yeah, okay.
You did this. Back to this film clip again. Excuse me. Back to this film clip again. You closed with some of your favorite shots, for which I thank you. As a matter of fact, there were 13 of them. 12, and then the 13th one, you rolled the credits. It was the Bonneville Salt Flats under a beautiful sky, 1 to 2 inches of water, and you and Ron were walking on water. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
walking on water.
Well, I some people may think I walk on water around here. That particular shot. By the way, we did try to avoid the water, but what I was looking for in that particular case, Norm, was to get that camera low and right next to this pool of water, and it was still, so it would create a mirror.
Yes.
Right, and then that particular shot that I was searching for was going to be a time lapse. There's these great clouds, and you know how the sun sets, especially over the salt flats. It starts kind of whitish, almost too bright, and then as the sun sets, the contrast in the clouds start coming in, and it starts pink, and then it slowly sort of, and how the sun is refracted through the clouds, but it starts pink and orange, and then it slowly moves to the slate grays and dark blues, and then it just fades away. And this silhouette of these mountains were there, and these clouds are coming toward me, and that was my inspiration. And I did try to get that. I saw that coming. As a matter of fact, that particular day, if I remember right, we flew out on our company jet.
Yes.
And
it's in the film.
Oh, okay. And it was a shot that I wanted to try to get, but we literally left Reno a couple hours before that.
Yes.
And there was a van waiting for us, and we rushed to get out there. We got out there, and we got the shot, and it's probably one of my favorite shots.
I think so. 2 more things. One, you're starting to do still shots now.
Right.
And how is that going?
Oh, it's wonderful. No, we decided maybe about 2 or 3 years ago to create still prints from our video library, and our resolution of our cameras and the type of files that they create are of high quality. As a matter of fact, the same video camera that I use, they use for stills. They use them for Time covers. They use them for Vogue covers. But I have found hundreds of my favorite frames, and then we print them out large.
Yes.
Big, 36 inch wide.
And you have them all over the paper. No?
We have them all over the paper. As a matter of fact, they're in every hotel room. We have company-wide, we have over 5,000 hotel rooms, and so each hotel room has 1 or 2 pictures, and then all the hallways. I have created over 18,000 of these prints, and I have signed every one of them by hand. And by hand, we have had several people hand title them.
Yes.
and then we've then they're in frames, and yeah, no, it's been great. One thing about pulling stills from video is, you know, you're shooting 30 to 90 frames a second. In the case of the gorillas, I have some wonderful still shots that I think would rival a cover of National Geographic. As a matter of fact, there's about 10 of them that could be the cover of National Geographic. And what you can do is you can capture that perfect frame, you know, 30 frames a second, that gorilla turns around and then gazes up at the camera. And then you can freeze it right when the little white dot of light is in his eye. And you can freeze that shot. As a matter of fact, I have a shot, Norm, where if you look closely into their eyes, you could see the lens of the camera. And maybe me glaring at him looks a bit like a fisheye lens, but we were that close to those things. And of course, I had unbelievable equipment. But yeah, the still photos have been great, and it's been a neat to be able to freeze that instant in time and be able to keep that in our library as well.
If I were face to face with a gorilla, male gorilla, I would not look into his eyes. One more question. I keep thinking of the French masters from the 18th, early 19th century, from the Impressionist days, and they used to paint things, and a woodblock cutter would cut the woodblock, and from the woodblock they would make prints, and the artist would sign it and number it, not just number it, 1 of 50, 2 of 50, so forth. And then with 2 witnesses, they would destroy the woodblock. Now, one of the world's great economists, King Louis XIV of France, said if herring weren't so plentiful, it would be a delicacy. So he understood that price is set by scarcity. And these woodblock numbered sign prints with a provenance from an art dealer that's the real McCoy, these things go for a fortune. Have you ever entertained, not destroying your videos, but have you ever entertained numbering them 1 to such and such, promising that you won't produce any more, and selling them through art galleries? Have you ever entertained that?
We have, and it's something that we may do in the future. We've looked into that, and I agree about numbering these things, and perhaps that'll happen in the future. We are now, as the hotel, all of our hotel rooms and all of our properties are already adorned with these pictures. As I create new ones, as my eye gets better, those would be the prints that we would create and consider perhaps a fine art picture that could be that can happen with. And so yes, we have considered that, and I think it's a great idea. And it wouldn't be many. Right now, we have over 500 different shots that we've repeated to get the 8,000, which is a lot.
Yes.
But I would consider taking some of my favorite frames, not from those, but from some new stuff that I shot. Spend a good deal of time on the finish, on the print quality, the paper, and the 100-year color fast paper, and then do a limited print, and those would become our fine art pictures.
Yes. What a great idea! Let me know when that happens. I'll be the first in line.
You got one.
Let me button up my part of the interview.
Sure, yeah.
Where do you go from here? What's your next project?
Well, I always got a ton of stuff in the works. Down the road, it probably won't be this year. We're planning on going to Papua New Guinea for a unbelievable, I feel, underwater expedition. That being said, that's probably going to be a year down the road. I have other things. So we're right now in the beginnings of pre-production on a filming expedition to the Canary Islands and to Morocco. And we're going to try to do that coming up here in October. And so we're starting the permit process and looking into locations and all that. So that's sort of our next fun little expedition.
You know, the rules I gave you for European laws
Yeah.
apply neither to the Canary Islands nor to Morocco.
That way I don't need permits. Let me tell you, I was scheduled to go into Morocco about a year and a half ago. We went into Morocco through the port of Tangier. We took a ferry from Algeciras, Spain. Unfortunately, I didn't have the correct permits, and we were not necessarily turned at the border, but the Morocco's version of TSA thought they should keep our cameras during our trip, and I didn't think that was acceptable. So I decided to turn at the border. So this is going to be round 2, and I will make sure I secure the proper filming permits before I go.
Okay. Joe, I want to thank you so much. Your photography is so delightful.
Oh, thanks, Norm.
And I am so grateful that you have the financial strength of the pepper mill behind you to do what you want. And please invite us back when you come back from Morocco.
I absolutely will. Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.